There was a time when I thought I had all the answers. I was raised to be strong, obedient, and certain of what I believed. My life looked perfect on the outside, structured, spiritual, committed. But on the inside, a silent storm brewed. I didn't speak of it. I couldn't. The questions I had were dangerous, even forbidden. But those very questions, those unsettling doubts, would eventually lead me to the most painful and profound transformation of my life. What I'm about to share with you isn't fiction. It's my truth. And maybe, just maybe, it's the truth you've been searching for too. So before you decide to scroll past, stay with me. Because if you've ever felt like you were drowning in silence, this story might just be your lifeline. I grew up in a home where everything had a place, a rule, and a reason. My identity was handed to me before I could even define myself. I was told who I was, what I should believe, and how I should behave. And I followed it all, not because I truly understood, but because questioning was never an option. My family believed that obedience was the highest virtue. From an early age, I memorized scriptures, recited prayers, and wore the symbols of faith like armor. But deep down, something never felt complete. I watched others close their eyes in prayer, feeling something powerful, and I wondered why I didn't. I performed all the rituals, but my heart remained untouched. It was as if I was speaking to a God who had muted me in return. No one ever told me that faith could feel empty. No one warned me that you could do everything right and still feel like you were dying inside. So I stayed silent. I pretended. I smiled and nodded and folded my hands just right. I blended in perfectly, a model believer on the outside while my soul crumbled in secret. There were nights I cried into my pillow, ashamed of the void I couldn't name. I thought maybe I was broken. Maybe I lacked something everyone else had, a deeper faith, a better heart, a cleaner soul. But what if the silence I felt wasn't a flaw in me, but a sign? What if those unspoken doubts were actually the beginning of something greater? It started small, a whisper of a thought, a flicker of discomfort during prayer. Questions I buried deep began clawing their way to the surface. Why did this feel like a cage instead of a refuge? Why did I feel more guilt than love? I told myself these thoughts were temptations, that they'd pass if I prayed harder. So I did. I fasted. I isolated. I begged God to make me feel something. I wanted connection. I wanted clarity. But the more I begged, the more distant everything felt. The rituals, once sacred, became hollow routines. And still, I said nothing. I feared that even whispering these thoughts would shatter my world. When you live a life designed by others, stepping outside of it feels like betrayal. But staying inside of it, when your heart is screaming for more, feels like death. I was torn. I didn't want to hurt my family. I didn't want to abandon my faith. But I couldn't deny the ache that grew louder with each passing day. And then one night, while aimlessly scrolling online, I heard his name. Not in a sermon, not in a debate, just a simple mention in passing. Jesus. It was like the word vibrated through my chest. I paused. I rewound. I listened again. Something in me stirred, a feeling I hadn't felt in years. It was terrifying, and it was beautiful. I didn't go looking for him. I wasn't rebelling. I was just lost. But once I heard his name, I couldn't unhear it. I started seeing it everywhere. Videos, articles, comments. I didn't understand why, but I followed the trail. Quietly, secretly. I read stories of people like me, people raised in strict faith traditions who spoke of a different kind of love, a different kind of God. I should have clicked away. I should have shut it down. But their words echoed the emptiness I had hidden for so long, and I felt something shift, like a door creaking open after years of being locked shut. Then came the dreams. Soft at first, blurry, a figure in white, always approaching, always silent. I would wake up in tears, heart pounding, unsure of what I had seen but convinced it was real. I tried to rationalize it. I told myself it was my imagination, a reaction to all I'd been reading. But deep down, I knew better. There was warmth in those dreams, peace, a sense of being seen, known, and, most impossibly, loved. I'd never experienced that kind of presence before. I began to pray differently, not with rehearsed words, but with raw honesty. And for the first time, I felt like someone was listening. One night I whispered a sentence that changed everything. Jesus, if you are real, show me. I didn't expect anything. I barely believed he could hear me. But the moment those words left my lips, I felt something I couldn't explain. Calm. Stillness. Not around me, but inside me. It didn't come with thunder or visions. Just silence. But a different kind of silence. One that wrapped around me, held me, and didn't demand anything in return. It felt like home. And I broke down. Right there on the floor, in the middle of the night, I cried like a child. Not from fear, but from release. From the weight lifting. From the knowing. He was real. I wish I could tell you the story ended there, wrapped in peace and understanding. But the truth is, that moment was just the beginning of a much harder road. Because when the people I loved discovered what I had been exploring, their love turned to fear, and then to rage. They didn't see my search for God as a journey. They saw it as betrayal. My mother wept. My father shouted. My siblings stopped speaking to me. Suddenly, I wasn't just a daughter. I was a danger, a disgrace. The home that had raised me became a prison. But even in that prison, I clung to what I had found. I couldn't deny him now. Not after everything. They took my phone, locked my room, hid my books. I had no way to reach out, no one to talk to. I was completely alone. But I wasn't afraid. Not anymore. I whispered his name under my breath, and every time I felt stronger. Not in my body, I still trembled, but in my spirit. I was being rebuilt, piece by piece from the inside out. I don't know how to explain it fully, but if you've ever felt completely alone, if you've ever cried out in the dark hoping someone was listening, then maybe you know what I mean. There is a strength that comes when you stop running from the truth, when you finally surrender. One night, everything erupted. I had forgotten to hide my Bible, and my younger brother found it. I heard his scream from the next room, and I knew instantly, my life would never be the same. My father burst into my room. My mother collapsed in grief. There was yelling, blaming, chaos. They didn't see a girl searching for God. They saw a traitor. My father held the Bible like it was poison. My brother said I had cursed the family. Someone threatened to fix me. I didn't understand what they meant until much later. But that night, I became something unforgivable in their eyes. I was no longer theirs. I was dragged out of bed in the middle of the night. My body flailed. My voice screamed. But it didn't matter. They had made a decision. I was a threat that had to be erased. I remember the smell of gasoline, the cold night air, the silence before the match was struck. I prayed, not to be saved, but to be received. Jesus, if this is the end, take me home. I wish I could tell you I passed out instantly, but I didn't. I felt every moment, the agony, the fire, the terror. But then, something unexplainable happened. My soul left my body. I saw myself from above. I saw the flames, the chaos, but I felt nothing. I hovered above my own pain. I watched my family, some crying, some indifferent, and I felt no hate, no anger, just stillness. Then, not the kind you see with closed eyes, but a void that swallows sound and light, and voices, taunting, accusing, telling me I was lost forever. I screamed, but the void devoured my voice. I thought it was over. I thought I had made a terrible mistake. But then, light, blinding, pure. And in that light, he stood. Jesus, radiant, gentle, fierce. His presence silenced every fear. He reached out and touched me, and I knew, without a doubt, I was loved. I was his, and it was not my time. He didn't have to speak, but he did. You are loved. You are mine. This is not your time. His voice didn't echo. It anchored. Every word went straight into my being, bypassing doubt, bypassing trauma, bypassing the years of religious confusion. I fell at his feet in that place between worlds. All the pain I had carried, all the guilt I had swallowed, it all evaporated in his presence. It wasn't judgment that I found. It was compassion, not a scolding God, but a loving Savior. I didn't want to leave. I wanted to stay there forever, in that light, in that peace. But he looked at me, calm and sure, and said, "Go back, tell them." And before I could speak, before I could beg to stay, I was pulled back into the world. I woke up screaming, flames still biting at my body. My lungs gasped for air. My skin seared, but I was alive. Neighbors must have heard. Someone must have called for help. I still don't know who dragged me from the fire. But the doctors later said what happened was impossible. I should have died. I shouldn't be able to walk. I shouldn't be able to speak. But I can. I healed in ways no one could explain. Burns faded faster than expected. Nerve damage reversed. Even the pain dulled more quickly than they predicted. Every scar they warned me about began to soften, like even my body refused to hold on to the past. In that hospital bed, I realized something crucial. God hadn't just saved me from death, He had resurrected me into purpose. For so long, I thought my silence was survival. I thought hiding my doubts was loyalty, but now I understood. My voice was never meant to be buried. My questions were never sins. They were steps, every one of them toward the truth I had been created for. And now I had to speak. I had to tell someone. Because if even one person out there was feeling what I had felt, trapped, ashamed, afraid, then maybe my story could be their escape route. Their fire would not have to consume them. But telling the truth came at a cost. After my discharge, my family refused to see me. I had no home to return to, no arms to fall into. I was alone again, this time with nothing but a small bag of clothes and the name of a shelter someone had scribbled on a paper towel. That's where I went. That's where I started over. No identity, no certainty, but with a tiny seed of hope still growing. Every day was a test. Every moment felt like walking on glass. But through it all, I held on to that one unshakable moment. His voice, his touch, his words. You are mine. That truth became my home. In that shelter, I met people who saw beyond the scars, volunteers who didn't ask questions but offered comfort, strangers who became friends, who gave without needing to understand everything. For the first time in my life, I wasn't surrounded by rules. I was surrounded by grace. I began reading again. This time, the Bible wasn't a forbidden book. It was a wellspring. Verses I'd never read began speaking directly to my wounds. I saw stories of redemption, of people like me who had failed, fallen, been cast out, and yet found by God anyway. That gave me courage. If they weren't too far gone, maybe I wasn't either. Slowly, my new life began to take shape. I found a small job. I started therapy. I began attending a quiet little church where no one demanded anything from me. No performance, no masks, just presence, just honesty. The people there didn't try to fix me. They listened, and that listening healed more than any sermon ever had. I started sharing little pieces of my story, first in whispers, then in conversations, and finally, one day, in front of a small group of women, I told them everything, from the questions to the fire, from the pain to the peace, and no one turned away. They leaned in, they wept, they hugged me, and that's when I understood the full weight of what Jesus had meant when He said, "Tell them." It wasn't just about my family. It was about anyone who had ever questioned their faith in the dark, anyone who had been told their doubts were rebellion, anyone who had been punished for simply wanting more. My story wasn't meant to glorify the trauma. It was meant to highlight the miracle. Because the truth is, the fire didn't destroy me. It refined me. And now, on the other side of it all, I could finally say what I had longed to believe. I am not lost. I am not broken. I am found. There are still days when the past comes knocking. A smell, a sound, a forgotten memory will bring it all back in an instant. And in those moments, I feel that old familiar ache, the ache of rejection, of being cast aside by the ones who once held me. But I've learned not to hide from it anymore. I meet it with the truth that has set me free. I tell my soul, you are no longer who they said you were. You are who He says you are. It's not about pretending the pain never happened. It's about refusing to let that pain define the ending. Because the ending now belongs to grace. I still pray for my family, every single day. Not with bitterness, not with anger, but with hope. I know they don't understand. I know they may never accept what I've chosen. But I also know this: what happened to me was not in vain. If even one of them reaches a moment of doubt and remembers my face, my strength, my peace, then maybe a seed will be planted. Maybe they'll find the courage to ask the same questions I once feared. That is my prayer. Not for revenge, not for reconciliation on my terms, just for truth to find them, the same way it found me. in the most unexpected places. There's something deeply powerful about standing in your truth, especially when it cost you everything. I used to believe that love had to be earned, that belonging came from conformity, that safety required silence. But I've learned that the deepest love is freely given, that real belonging begins when you stop pretending, and that true safety is found in the presence of God, not in the approval of people. That realization changed everything. I no longer chase acceptance. I live from identity. And that identity is not fragile. It is not dictated by culture, tradition, or fear. It is anchored in the one who called me his. People ask me now how I can still believe in God after everything I've been through. And my answer is simple. I don't believe in the God I was taught to fear. I believe in the God who walked into my fire, the one who didn't condemn me when I questioned, the one who met me in dreams, who whispered my name when I was lost, who carried me when I couldn't even stand. That is the God I serve now, a God of restoration, a God who doesn't erase your past, but redeems it, a God who takes the ashes of your life and creates beauty. I didn't find him in a religion. I found him in the wreckage. I tell you this not to convince you, but to invite you. Maybe you've never dared to question what you were taught. Maybe you've been afraid to even whisper your doubts out loud. Maybe you've been taught that silence is safety and that questions lead to punishment. I understand. I lived that way for most of my life. But what if your questions are actually sacred? What if your doubts are the doorway? I'm not saying the journey is easy. I'm saying it's worth it. And I'm here to tell you, you are not alone. There is room for you. There is grace for you. And yes, there is more than what you've known. If my story resonates with you even just a little, don't let it end here. Don't push the stirring away. Sit with it. Ask the questions you've buried. Cry the tears you've held back. Whisper the name you've been afraid to say. Jesus. He isn't afraid of your anger, your wounds, or your silence. He's closer than you think. I know, because I found him in the flames. I found him in the absence. I found him when everyone else turned away, and he never let go. You don't have to figure it all out right now. Just be willing to take one step, one honest, trembling step toward the light. So here's what I leave you with. If you feel lost, there's a way home. If you feel unworthy, there's grace enough for you. If you feel like the questions are too heavy, he can carry them. You don't need to clean yourself up first. You don't need to know everything. You just need to be honest. Say it out loud. Jesus, if you're real, I want to know you. That's it. One sentence. That's where my journey began, and it changed everything. I didn't just find answers, I found life. And that same life is waiting for you, right now, in this moment. You are loved, you are seen, you are not alone. This is not the end, it's the beginning. Maybe you've made it this far because something inside you is stirring. Maybe you feel that quiet pull, the one I felt too, the one that whispers there's more to life than just surviving. Maybe you're standing at the edge of everything you've ever known, afraid to step out but even more afraid to stay where you are. If that's you, then this moment is not a coincidence. This is your invitation, not to religion, not to rules, but to relationship, to healing, to truth, to the kind of love that finds you in the fire and carries you through it. You don't have to have all the answers. You don't have to pretend anymore. You just have to be willing. Open your heart. Say it with me. Jesus, if you are real, I want to know you. That's not a performance. That's a beginning. And beginnings matter more than you think. It was in my rawest, most desperate moment that I found the one who never walked away. He changed everything. And he can change everything for you too. Not because you've earned it, but because you were made for it. If this story touched something deep inside you, don't stay silent. Don't stay hidden. Speak it. Share it. Let this be the day everything begins to change. Subscribe to this channel. Not just to follow content, but to follow the truth. Follow the one who didn't leave me in the dark. Follow Jesus. If you're unsure how, stay close. We'll walk this together. Because you were never meant to carry your questions alone. You were never meant to heal in isolation. This space exists for you. Comment below. Tell me where you are in your journey. Tell me what questions keep you up at night. Tell me what you're still afraid to say out loud. This is a safe place. Not a perfect place, but a real one. I read every message. You matter here. And if you're feeling brave, Share this video with someone you love. You never know what one honest story can unlock in another person's life. And if you're ready to go deeper, come back. There are more stories, more voices, more proof that grace doesn't discriminate, and that Jesus still shows up in the most unexpected places. This is just one story among many, and your story, your voice, matters more than you think. Don't let the pain have the final word. Don't let fear write your ending. There is more waiting for you, and it's beautiful. I'm so honored you've taken the time to be here, truly. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being open. Whether this is your first time hearing the name of Jesus, or you've known him for years but lost your way, know this: you are not forgotten. You are not disqualified. There is room at the table. There's a place with your name on it. And I hope you'll keep walking with me as we discover more of this truth together. Until next time, stay curious, stay brave, stay honest, and above all, stay near to the one who's already closer than you think. We're in this together, and I can't wait to see what happens next. With all my heart, thank you. This isn't goodbye. This is just the beginning. Keep going. Keep seeking. And remember, you are deeply, fully, eternally loved, always.